Hi everybody, it's Andy Phillips here, and as you can see, I've got Mark Barrett. Hi, Mark.
Hello there.
Now we're going to do our sort of irregular monthly tax update, and there's some good stuff we're going to talk about today, Mark.
A lot of people are claiming support from the government because of coronavirus, and quite right. And if they need it, claim it. My worry in all these things is there's going to be a repercussion. There's going to be checks. There's going to be paperwork checking. There's going to be fraud testing. There's going to be all sorts. So I thought I'd run through, because it's so current, what people have to do to protect themselves now, ready for later.
Brilliant. Okay, James, do you want to put your presentation up, and I'll share that on screen with people.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. There you go.
Good.
Beautiful.
So thank you for that, and I hope you like my scary eye picture on the top there.
Yeah.
It always feels like that's what life's like with the tax office. That it's all very well. They start off with this great idea of, yes, we're going to support everyone, and I'm really pleased at what our government's done, but there's going to be some checking afterwards. So we're not trying to put a damper on the claims, but they will be making inspections of the records and the claims you've made. So we are suggesting that you now need to get prepared.
I think that's important, because you see, people sort of, they've put a lot of things out, a lot of things that you can do. So if you've got employees, you can put them on furlough or whatever it's called now.
Yeah.
But there's going to be loads of people. I think there's going to be lots of business out there that are going to do things which they think, oh, I'll try this, I'll chuck this in, see if I can get this.
Yeah.
But they will check it afterwards. And they might not be for a few months, but it will come back to bite you if you don't do things in the right way.
Well, there's that, but it's actually a bit more than that, I think. And you'll see it as I go through the presentation. Actually, a perfectly legitimate claim, there is a process. You have to do it, and do it this way, and it's prescribed. And it's all very nice now. We're talking to a government that's trying to be helpful and stuff like that. That's great. But later on, there is someone who's going to be checking it.
Yeah.
So even for when it's perfectly right and legitimate, you're not trying to pull any wool over their eyes or anything, but you've still got the right process to make sure you get it done properly.
Get the processing right, yeah.
So let's crack on. So the first thing I was going to talk about is obviously the job retention scheme. It's the most current. It opened up yesterday. 185,000 businesses have claimed. 1.3 million people are currently on furlough. Claims have been processed through the portal. The portal didn't fall over very much. It did fall over, but it wasn't too bad. So what I was going to do was just take you through what the government have said. So I put that first one up, and on all of these, you'll see if it's in italic, I'm actually quoting, and if it's an underline, it's my emphasis, not theirs.
Right.
So you cannot maintain your current workforce because your operations have been severely affected. Wow. Okay. So you can't just put someone on furlough. You're meant to have had it because you've been seriously affected. That's interesting in that exactly the same document, they contradicted themselves, because what they then said, and again, I've highlighted, however, all employers are eligible to claim under the scheme. Okay, so which one is it? Because you've been severely affected, or hell, we can claim it anyway? Now, I know that when we come around to being checked by HMRC, I've got a feeling I know which one of those two they're probably going to look at.
Yeah.
So therefore, there is an effect. Of course, you've been affected. My recommendation, so our advice, make sure there's a formal record of the effect. We don't want to go back and start saying, well, actually what happened was. Actually have it written down, contemporaneous notes. And for a business or a company, you'll notice I start using the phrase about board minutes, and I'll be talking about that in a moment, but write it down, and not only write it down, but share it so that it's proven that it was contemporaneous.
Right.
So how would you prove it? The easy one is your accountant. Write down, our business has been affected by this because of, and this is how it's been affected, and email it to somebody. So it's now dated and timed.
So if you documented, if say for instance as a business you have a board meeting. I mean, some people aren't so formal. Some smaller businesses aren't so formal, but they would have what is the equivalent of a board meeting. They would
they've got a board meeting. No,
well, you know what I'm saying. It's like, you know, some of the smaller businesses may not sort of make it so formal, if you know what I mean. But if they have a board meeting, they document what they've done.
Yep.
and then they send that documentation of that board meeting to their accountant as
Yep.
like a heads up.
Yep.
And that would be contemporaneous evidence
I think
that
so.
the company had been affected by the coronavirus.
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
Now, when you're going to get to directors, which is my next slide, so thank you for that. You've led me to it beautifully.
I try my best.
You're looking at plans to furlough a director. Now, there was a lot of chatter on all the forums about this when it first started, because it initially started off by talking about employees. But of course, directors aren't actually employees. That's going to be one of my next points in a second. But one of the issues I've got with this is that usually in your personal service company, so there's a couple who own a company, whatever they're doing in it, but it's just owned by the husband and wife, say, or an individual. They typically will have a very small director's fee. It's just typically about 800 quid a month, 700 quid a month. 80% of that, you're talking about 500 quid. So the relief you're going to get is actually very small.
Yeah.
And my argument, I'm afraid, is why would you want to furlough the director? Why can't the director get on and run the business? And by running the business, okay, there's nothing happening now, but plan your business, get your marketing, work with Andy, get your funnel working, work with Mark, get your plan working. Just get on with your job, guys. So that's the first point I'll make. They're not allowed to do any normal work. So they can't do marketing. They can't do brand marketing. Literally, all a director can do is handle the director's legal duties.
This is important, really, because this is something which people could slip up on.
Yep.
If you're a director and you furlough yourself.
Yep.
What you're saying is you cannot market your business. You cannot go onto Facebook and put a post up which is marketing your business, because that will go against it and you could get into trouble. I mean, it's that strict.
Yeah, it is. And actually, if you've listened to any of these broadcasts before, I did actually refer to it in a previous one.
Yeah.
Well, I actually got a tax inquiry, which is still ongoing, where the director of a company had put up an exaggerated claim about his wealth, and you know that some people do that. HMRC had actually printed that off and sent it to me. They are on the forums. There was a message that I contributed to earlier on one of the forums. I don't know if it's pins. I can't remember now. I do apologize. Where the guy said, yeah, I know we're not meant to, but I'm going to anyway. Really? You actually published you're going to commit fraud? Oh, please don't. So be very careful. This is the one I want everyone to pay attention to. Please, please pay attention. The director gets the small director's fee because he's not an employee. A director gets a director's fee. If we run the payroll for you, you'll notice you never get the word salary or wages. Salary and wages are the things that employees get. Directors don't get salary or wages, they get director's fee. You're not an employee. The benefit of that is you're exempt from national minimum wage and the working time directive. So if you now create a whole bunch of paperwork that says, I'm going to put this, our employee called, who happens to be a director, on furlough, and you're starting to treat this person like an employee, be careful you're not creating an implied contract of employment. You don't want to come back after claiming your 1 month or 2 months worth of 500 quids and suddenly find you've got to pay yourself the national minimum wage. You're working 40, 50 hours, you've got to pay yourself the £9.72 an hour. That's going to hurt you on tax. So don't do something short term. Don't do it badly short term, just to get a few hundred quid, which cripples you longer term because you've changed your status to an employee. So our advice for our clients, and this goes back to what you were just saying, Andy, we have a furlough document. We have a furlough document for employees, but we've got a different one for a director. Directors have a different furlough document, furlough agreement. So any of our clients who go through this, we're dealing with this properly for you. If you're not one of ours and you don't know what I'm talking about, talk to your accountant, talk to your HR advisor, talk to your lawyer. Don't create a document that tempts HMRC to start to redefine a person as an employee. You don't want to be paying that sort of tax after coronavirus is finished. You'll notice that the slide says 1 of 2. Guess what you've got now? If you're going to furlough the director, comply with the rules. Andy, this was again the point you raised, so well done. You did read the slides before we started. Well done. Again, my emphasis, everybody. As an office holder, salaried company directors. Oh, salary. Mark just said it shouldn't be the word salary. Don't like that word being there. You can see where I'm twitching now, guys. It's a director's fee. They're not salaried. A bit worried about that. Okay, a company director owe duties to their company, which are set out in the Companies Act. We're a company acting through its board of directors. So now it's the board decision making this. So typically a director, let's imagine Mark Barrett. I am a director of my company. I do some work. I'm working right now. I'm also a shareholder. I've got what you might consider to be a schizophrenic relationship with my company. Sometimes I'm a worker, sometimes I'm a director, sometimes I'm a shareholder. In this instance, it's Mark with his board of directors hat on. That's important. We're going to get there. Considers that it is appropriate that we should be furloughed. This should be formally adopted as a decision of the company. Formally adopted, it's called a board minute. Noted in the company records, that's called the statutory register. The statutory register, by the way, it's a legal requirement. You must have a statutory register. It's the law. Again, I know that a lot of owner-managed companies, you don't worry about these things. You're wrong not to worry about them. You should get them done. And you should have communicated in writing to the directors concerned. So do it properly. In addition to using the specific furlough agreement, make sure that your board minute is written and properly inserted into the statutory register. These are things that HMRC, when they come out and check to say, well, you know, I noticed that you've claimed furlough for yourself, Mr. Smith. I'm working right now. Oh, there's some background noise there.
I'm trying to put answer a query, and my speaker was up as full loud as you can possibly do.
HMRC can ask to see your furlough agreement. They can ask to see your board minute, and they want to see it in your statutory register. They can ask for these things. So that's done with directors. I'm now just going to go on to employees. You've got some employees and you want to use the job retention scheme, the furlough. The rules are explicit. HMRC have written this. Well, that's great, but actually it's all employment law. Remember, these are employees. So employees should discuss with their staff. You can't make a decision and point at someone and said, you're going to be furloughed, because any changes to the employment contract by agreement. So what I'm worried about here is if you point at someone that says you are going to be furloughed, you don't have a choice, I'm only going to pay you 80%, you haven't complied with employment law.
Right.
Do it properly. You must maintain your rules about equality and discrimination. And to be eligible for the grant, the employers must confirm in writing to their employee. I think that's bad advice from HMRC now, because you cannot change, an employer cannot arbitrarily change the contract of employment of an employee. You cannot. You must get the agreement of the employee in writing to change their employment contract. And if you're only going to pay them 80%, that's a change. There is only one instance where that isn't the case, is that if you've got a furlough, a layoff clause in your contract of employment, and very few people ever have those. So points to note here, people. Make sure, first of all, that you've got an employment contract. I didn't write that into our advice. Make sure you do have an employment contract. Make sure you have a furlough agreement, which is signed off in writing. An email is sufficient. So if Mr. Smith, the owner of the business, discusses with Mr. Brown, he's going to be furloughed, Mr. Brown sends an email from his home address, his home email account saying, yeah, I agree, boss. Perfect, that's enough. Don't put yourself in a position where the employee knows you've broken the law and holds it over you. And HMRC will be checking. Isn't it horrible when the accountant's on? He's always talking about scary things, but my job is always to worry about what can go wrong.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
Try to stop.
Worst case scenario, isn't it?
If I can plan for the worst and hope for the best.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I keep doing negative stuff with it each time I come on your show, Andy, but my job is plan for the worst. Self-employed relief. Some of the people listening to me will be self-employed or will think of themselves as self-employed. So let's just deal with a few of these. All the rules are constantly being updated. If you're one of our clients, you'll see on our Facebook posts and the company Facebook posts, we're constantly updating it. We were updating 4 or 5 times a day. HMRC are updating their guidance, but they're not publishing that they have updated it. They're just updating it. So you have to read it, and then that afternoon, read it again. And in the morning, read it again. And it's not a case that any changes have been highlighted. They're not. You just have to read the whole damn thing again. So if ever your accountant or your advisors are a little bit behind that game, don't kick them too hard, especially if it's us, please. We are working very hard to keep rereading and rereading and rereading. There are 5 of us reading these damn documents. So property investor trading in their own name is not self-employed. And the easy test to see whether you're self-employed or not is, are you paying class 2 and class 4 national insurance? I see lots of people moaning and saying, well, of course I'm self-employed. I'm self-employed as a property investor. Be careful what you wish for, folks. If you pay class 4 national insurance, you're adding 9% national insurance to your profit bill, to your tax bill. 9% of all your profits are going to disappear. So even if you can't get a relief now, and it's a bit sad, this isn't going to last forever, but start paying 9% extra tax. Yeah, that will last forever. So be careful that the turkey doesn't start wishing for Christmas. We've even got one of our clients who has been trying to persuade us that actually they really were self-employed. Can we go back and change the tax return? We've said we don't think you were self-employed and it'd be against our advice. I'm delighted to say that HMRC then came out and said you cannot change your tax return after 26th of March. Well, you can change it, but the changes will not be taken into account when working out your eligibility. Right. So you can't go backwards and say, oh, hang on, I know I cheated and I didn't tell you about all the profit I made. I'm going to tell you now, too late. And that was one of the latest changes made to the guidance. Another one that changed very recent, it started by saying that you had an average of 3 years, but the change was made that if you've had a break in your self-employment in 17-18, but you were self-employed in 16-17, they're going to ignore 16-17. They're only going to use 18-19. Right. Now, I can understand protecting a person that's had a break in their self-employment. I completely understand that. But why ignore 16-17? Just visualize the situation. Someone's been self-employed for many, many years, including 16-17, and ceased, got a job, for example, whatever, started again in 18-19. Well, 18-19 was a start again year. Yeah. Well, it's bound to be a low year then, isn't it? Why can't we look back at 16-17 and say, well, this is what this guy normally earns? So I think that one sort of reduces the numbers.
Because what they're, I mean, again, maybe your cynicism is rubbing off on me, but yeah, because they know that, and paying, money to someone who did have a break, maybe a job. It may and might not have to pay so much money out. I don't know. It's
it does make you wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean they're not stupid. They do know what happens with these with people, especially in these sort of situations, and they'll always choose the lowest payment route. I would have thought. I'm
pleased to see my cynicism is paying off.
Yeah, it's rubbing off on me.
You are now infected. Okay. So last part of all of this, and again, we don't know the answer. It's all changing. It's changing all the time. HMRC will calculate and pay you what it thinks it is right that it should pay you. It's not a case that we as your accountants can make a claim for you. They're just going to pay you what they think is right. So we don't know what the process might be to question or query or argue what they said. We don't know the answer. So I'm afraid it's a suck it and see job. We're still having to just wait and see what they say about that one. That doesn't happen till June.
So there is no process as such
No,
in place at the moment.
no, and there won't be a process. Sorry, to interrupting you. I do apologise, Andy, but answering you. If you look about the furlough scheme, everyone's paying the wages on the 30th of April, but the scheme was only launched yesterday, the 21st, and HMRC will be sitting for 6 days before they make the payments. Well, the 21st plus 6 days is the 27th. There's weekends involved here yet, and you want the money by the 30th. It's really tight.
It is.
Really, really tight. You might not get the cash in time to pay the wages yet. HMRC will be doing this in June. We don't know if that's the 1st of June. We don't know if it's the 30th of June. We don't know whether they're going to do it on the 28th and say, yes, we succeeded, it was June. We just don't know. So once you get the money and you look at it and say, well, it's half of what I expected, I don't know what the process is going to be yet. Well, we don't know. So
I mean, the word unprecedented is overused, I think, in this. I mean, it's the only word that fits a lot of things that are actually going on right now. You know, for the government to do this in the first place, it's unprecedented.
Yeah.
To actually get it right,
yeah,
you sort of got to take your hat off to the thought process.
Oh, I tell you what, I was
the implementation. You know, it's just it's not going to be easy, I don't think.
Well, yeah, you're a smart man, Andy. You work with IT all the time. Just the idea of just think about this. We've got, in a very short space of time, it was only 4 weeks, an organization that has existed for hundreds of years and existed for the purpose of extracting cash out of your pocket has now been completely repurposed to put money in your pocket. And they created all the systems, everything, with 4 weeks notice, and that includes fraud testing. Wow.
It is pretty impressive. It is pretty impressive.
Wow.
I think people forget this as well. You know, this is the thing that, I hear a lot of people sort of complaining about how it's working, how they can't do things, how they, and I understand that, because from a personal position, you look at your business and you look at your employees and you look at what's actually happening right now, and all you're thinking about is, how do I get from here to where I need to be in 3 months' time or whatever, or 6 months' time.
Yeah, but what they have done is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And you're talking about government departments who seem to have spent their life doing red tape and how not to frustrate. No one ever sets out to frustrate, but how to be pernickety about everything, have adopted a can-do attitude to make these things work. The only problem I've got is that these same buggers who have got hundreds of years experience of extraction and pernickety are the ones that are going to be checking afterwards. Yeah. They're the ones that worry me. That's why I've used that horrible picture that I have, because I think it's coming. You're not going to have a system that is built upon, yes, we're here for you. That isn't going to last.
Do you think there's, I don't know, a thing to talk about? Is it the case that if companies, business owners, self-employed people, whatever it is, wherever your situation is, that actually attempt to do the right thing, they read all the information, they attempt to do everything in the exact right way, and they get something wrong, they're not going to get hit for that, are they? If they can prove that they did everything they possibly could do to get it right, they're not going to get hit by something,
Well, I think it's a really good point, and thank you. I think the situation you've got, and I really am that boring. I was sitting in an online conversation with 280 lawyers. Believe me, if you want to see how boring accountants can be, try lawyers. And you've got the issue about is it reasonable to rely upon what a government is saying? So when a minister stands up, or when the prime minister stands up and says, we're going to do this, or the chancellor says, and their guidance said this, and the fact that the guidance changes with no notice, no highlighting, and they point at it and say, well, actually, the version we're looking at was dated, the afternoon of the 20th of April and you read the one in the morning, that's no justification to hurt you. I think you've got every right to be defensive. However, the points I've been talking about today, so something like the board minutes, and we started this, an early part of this conversation, Andy, where you're saying, yeah, but most of them don't bother. Yeah, but they always should have bothered.
Right.
It's never an excuse to say, well, I can't be bothered. I never could be bothered, and I shouldn't be bothered now. That's no excuse. Yeah, there is a law that says you should have a statutory register. It's legislated. So why the hell haven't you got one? Just do your damn job. And I personally think directors should not be following themselves right now. Go and make your business right. Go and get it fixed. You might not be able to sell anything right now, but
I mean, it seems like the best advice. I mean, if you're talking about, I totally understand this, and I think it's perfectly right to do that, because if you are a director and you're getting, £500 a month, it does seem completely pointless to do it, because you should have some more money in the background to sustain you through. And if you can use that time wisely, I mean, I'm talking to a lot of people at the moment. If you can't do your business the way you normally do your business, use your time wisely. Up your marketing game, get out there and become more visible, and put some solutions out there, help people, get engagement going and things like that. So on the marketing side,
all of those things,
absolutely do that, and that's probably worth far more than £500 a month in your pocket.
You've got credit cards.
Actually come back.
Like credit on a credit card. Anything. Carry on working.
Yeah. Just
get your job done. I'm not bragging, but Andy, I said it to you before this broadcast started. Back in 2008, the recession, it was really, really bad.
Yeah.
I grew my firm in 2008, not by a huge amount, I accept, but I grew it. My competitors were cutting and sacking 30% of their staff. I grew it because I was marketing my business. I was doing my business. I was doing what I am paid to do. I'm the owner. I'm the director. My job is get on with it. And I think what people should be doing that now. Okay, I've got 2 more slides. Can I just do those ones?
Yep.
I know this isn't tax, so forgive me and don't send me abusive emails, please. If you're a property investor with a 3 or even 6 week lockdown, don't ask for payment holidays on your mortgage, please. Again, find the money. You should have had some money in the background. I have this real worry about a property investor. When all this is over, they're going to go to a lender to say, lend me some money for another property, please. I think the lender's got the right to look at you and say, but you were so fragile. A 3 week interruption knocked you into cash shortage and you asked for holidays. If anyone needed payment holiday after 3 weeks, I wouldn't be lending the money. And I don't see why the lenders would either.
Because I say it doesn't go on your credit file.
Well, it probably doesn't.
Yeah, but that's not the point, is it? It's not the point if it goes on your credit file. It's your payment history they look at.
Yes. And who the hell says that the lenders can't add an extra question onto the form that says, during the coronavirus that lasted 6 weeks, did you have to ask for a holiday? Goodness sake. If you say, yes, I did, I think, no, thank you. You're too fragile. You're not a good business person. Please, next. There's always someone that they can lend money to. I just like it to be you rather than somebody else. So just run your business better. Last slide. I think we're getting to time, actually. HMRC are coming to look at you. Your accountant. Your accountant will offer you something that's known as fee protection. What that means is if you're being investigated, the insurer pays to defend you. They won't pay your tax bill, they'll pay to defend you. We've already checked. One of my directors was on the case straight away. Our insurer has already added this to our policy, and there's no extra cost because of it. Now I'm seeing accountants who are now charging, I've heard of one accountant charging £70 per person to operate the furlough portal for them. I've seen accountants who are increasing their costs. Don't accept the increase in cost, guys. It's not time to spend money. But make sure, please, if you do nothing else from this presentation, make sure you've got fee protection in place. Because when you are checked, when you need someone to defend you, you don't want to be paying for people to defend you. Let the insurers pay.
Brilliant.
in the highly likely event that you'll be investigated, be prepared. And that.
Yeah, very sobering, very sobering. But, I mean, but great advice, and this is the whole point of this. You know, this is a time which is so strange and so different and so weird, and so many different things are going on that, you know, we as business owners are sort of struggling mentally because, you know, at the same time, you know, I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm trying to run my business and I'm trying to get, you know, we've got some customers that have left us, some customers that have joined us. You know, it's a lot of turmoil. There's a lot of things going on at the moment.
Yep.
And at the side of this, so you've got to keep an eye on what's going on the tax side, you know, and making sure that you're complying and all that sort of stuff. And it can be a bit troubling. So, you know, doing these, and for people watching this is just a really good heads up, and a sort of like an early warning call. Don't screw this up.
You think it's bad now? Don't make it worse by getting trouble later as well, please.
Yeah, cool. Mark, absolutely brilliant. Thanks very much for that. It's, we're going to do another one. Maybe we might need to do another one before a month goes by because things are changing so quickly.
You know, I'm always happy to help the Pin family.
That's fantastic. Thanks very much, Mark. And as I say, if we've got anybody who wants to ask any questions on here, we'll keep an eye on it. I know Mark keeps an eye on the questions.
I do. Yeah.
So if you've got a question, stick it in there. We'll try and answer them. And if there's enough questions about the same sort of thing, we'll do another little live and cover that. So thanks very much, Mark. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you
everyone.
Well pretty soon, hopefully.
Yeah, with some good news next time, maybe.
Yeah, with some good news for a change. Thanks a lot, mate. Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.